Hello there, and welcome to Successful Property Investment Secrets, the #1 resource for you to go further, faster in your property investment journey. In this video, we're going to be discussing the 12 different ways that you can make money from property and go over 12 different strategies that you can use today to actually get yourself going. So each week on this channel, we will be revealing useful strategies, resources, and tips from the most successful property investors in the UK in order to help you cut your learning curve and achieve your property investment goals. So if it's your first time to the channel, you should certainly consider subscribing to stay up to date with the ever-changing and dynamic property investment industry. So without further ado, my name is Azir Factual, and I'm going to get into the content. So the first strategy that I'd like to discuss is called qualified leads. So with regards to what this means is basically you as an investor or a property investor, you might actually go out there or you might hear that someone's got a property for sale. So that is generally just a lead, that there's the property over there for sale. Now that's a lead, and what I'd call an unqualified lead. A qualified lead is where you would then take that information that it's available for sale, and then you get a few vital bits of information, such as the person's name, their maybe email address, and their phone number, so you can actually get the details. So an unqualified lead will be that this property, number 123 Sesame Street, as an example, is available for sale. And then a qualified lead would actually be able to get the contact information of the actual person selling, the vendor. Now the difference is an unqualified lead could be about £5 to £60 is what people would pay for that, whereas a qualified lead, someone would be looking for to pay you around £50 to £250, depending on how much information you're able to give the investor, the person that's looking for the lead. So that's two ways there: unqualified lead and a qualified lead. Now, the third way to make money from property is with something called serviced accommodation. Now, if you've never heard of this before, it's basically you're running your own Airbnb. So if you don't even know what an Airbnb is, think of it as a cross between a bed and breakfast and a hotel. So obviously with a hotel, it's sort of high end, really nice finish room. You're going to have all sorts of different things in there. You might have a bar in there, you may have a fridge in there, you'll have a kettle in there, you'll have ensuite and a really nice large double room. Whereas a bed and breakfast tends to be still a nice room, but it could be a room that has in a shared house that has shared bathroom, or it might actually have an ensuite itself. You'll provide literally just the bed. You might have some small cooking facilities in there, and that's about it really. So really have a look at the Airbnb website and have a look at what's available there. That's what is generally meant by service accommodation. You're providing a service for the individual. They're looking to rent a room from you on a short-term basis. It might be 1 day, 1 night. It might be a couple of nights, a week. It might be something, a short-term let up to about 90 days is generally considered a short-term let. And that's service accommodation. You will be changing the bed linens. You're provided like a cleaning service and all those kind of things as well. Now, the fourth way to make money from property is via something called an HMO, which stands for House of Multiple Occupancy. So this is just a fancy way, really, of saying shared accommodation. Now, think of it as a student accommodation or accommodation where working professionals live together, or it could even be LHA tenants, people that are claiming housing benefits. So typically what happens is you'll have like a 5-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms in there, and you'll maybe have, it's close to the university and you'll have students living there, or it might be close to the local employer and you might have lots of employees there. So as an example, in Bristol, they've got Airbus and Rolls-Royce. So you might have a lot of Airbus employees working in there. If it was up in, say, somewhere like near Aztec West in Bristol, North Bristol, near Bradley Stoke, you may very well have people working from EE living there, Virgin, all the kind of companies that are around there. So close to the employer, the employees able to get into work within sort of 10 to 15 minutes. That's the type of thing that they would be looking for, a house of multiple occupancy, shared accommodation, basically. The next way, the fifth way, to make money is, or fifth property investment strategy, if you like, is what's called a finder's fee. So a finder's fee is basically, you'll have generally an investor reach out to a property sourcer, someone a bit like myself, and they'll say, look, I'm looking for this type of property in this kind of area with this type of money, cash flow involved, purchase price at this kind of amount, that kind of stuff. And they'll task you, or they'll charge you with the task of finding them such a property, and then they'll pay you a fee for that. These fees can range anywhere from sort of £2,000 to sort of £5,000 in general. And yeah, you basically work with the investor and you actually find them a property investment. Typically what happens is they are cash rich, time poor. They don't have the time to go out and look and analyze all of these property investments, and they just want someone to go out and find the deal for them. So the next one is, the sixth one is commercial conversion. Now this is what you'll typically find is a commercial property that could then be converted into a residential property. A great example of this is if you look at somewhere like Plymouth as an example, there's a lot of Victorian style properties, and in a lot of these properties are quite large, and they may have a business or multiple businesses in them. A great example of this would be a lot of solicitors typically, and accountants typically as well. They generally buy these larger Victorian properties, and they run their business from them. Sometimes these businesses now leave and it's just a commercial unit, as it were. Prime, it's in a residential area, it's a prime location for you to then buy that property, convert it into a shared accommodation, from offices to shared accommodation, and go from there. So that's a great way of buying a freehold building, a large freehold building, converting it into something like an HMO as an example, shared accommodation, and then going down that route. So it's a great way to buy property and make big money that way. The next one is title splitting. So title splitting is basically, let's say you found one of these older kind of offices, older kind of buildings that was arranged as offices, maybe on 3 or 4, 5 floors or something along those lines. And what you then do is you would then, and let's say it's already been converted, someone's done it already, it's loosely arranged as individual flats. I mean, I looked at one earlier this week, and we had one that was a large building. I think it was on 3 levels, and it was arranged as 2 flats. So it had 2 flats, 2 one-bedroom flats on the ground floor. It had one one-bedroom flat on the middle floor, and then it had 2 one-bedroom flats on the 3rd floor. So it's kind of split that way. And they all had their own meters. They're already loosely arranged as flats, but they hadn't been title split. You would come in as the investor, buy the whole building. In this example, it's been sold for 150 to 200,000. You could then buy that as, like, say, 150,000 pounds, the whole building. You could then title split it, and each individual flat in that particular area is worth 90,000 pounds. So it would, the whole building would be worth 450,000 pounds in that example. So that's a great way, title splitting. So get in a building that's already arranged loosely as flats, individual flats. It's all on one freehold. It hasn't been title split at the moment, and you come in as the investor, and then you then title split it and do it that way. So that's a great investment opportunity that way. The next way to make money from property is through lease options. Now, lease options is basically an agreement on paper, legal agreement that gives you the right, but not the obligation, to buy a property at a set price at some point in the future. So any time between now and some point in the future, could be 12 months from now, it could be 5 years or 12 years from now. You have already agreed a price to buy up front, and then at any time between now and that end date, you can then purchase the property at that period of time. Now, this isn't something that everyone will go for. Usually the vendor, the person that's selling the property, will only really go for a purchase option if, 1, they're struggling to sell the property, 2, they do not need all the money, the proceeds of the sale right away, and 3, usually it's someone that's looking to get rid of the liability of the property rather than they need all of the money. They don't want to sell it at a major discount. Perhaps they're in negative equity, so they don't want to sell it at a major discount, or they can't sell it at a major discount, the property, and they don't have the money to fix it up or something along those lines. So they need a maximum price. They've got a set price in their mind that they absolutely need. They just want to get rid of the liability. They don't need all the money up front right away. So purchase option in that example would be fantastic. So you agree a price, get the agreement in writing of who does what and what the responsibilities are and stuff like that. And then you send it to solicitors, who will then wrap a legal framework around your agreement. Your agreement, initial agreement, is usually referred to as heads of terms. You send that to a solicitor, they wrap a legal framework around it, and then give it to you and the vendor, the seller, to read and then sign, and then you kind of go forward from there. So that's a great way to own property. Mr. Donald Trump does this a lot in the beginning. Robert Kiyosaki is another great. He's an author of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's a great advocate of this as well. Basically, control everything and own nothing, as it were. So you control things using paperwork. You don't actually have to own anything, which is great in an environment where you're unsure whether house price is going to go up or down, or specifically down. You can kind of control it and wait for the market to recover. When the market recovers, then you can then exercise your option to purchase the property. So that's a great investment strategy right there. The next investment strategy is what we call prepackaged deals. Now, prepackaged deals are typically, as a property sourcer like myself, you go out there, you'll find an investment property, you'll negotiate the price, you'll get a good discount off of it, you'll find out what the cost of repairs are, if any refurbishment is required. You'll have builders lined up ready to kind of go in if need be. You'll have a solicitor in place ready to act as an independent person for the buyer. You'll have a mortgage broker ready to act as well on top of the buyer, and they will generally, if it's a creative solutions required to purchase the property and stuff like that, then you can kind of do that. They'll have the skill set to do that and work with investor and find the right money lender for that situation, for that vendor. So it's really important to have all of your kind of ducks in line. And why that's great for an investor is if they're really busy, perhaps they're a doctor, solicitor, accountant, or someone who's just working, like 9 till 9, as it were. They've got no time to go out there and find investment properties for sales, do all the negotiation, get all the legal and power team together and stuff like that. You have all of that ready to get for them. You give that to them, you present that to the investor. They look through the details, do their own due diligence, they're happy, and then they just say yes, and they can basically step into a deal and go through from there. So it's fantastic from an investor's point of view like that. The next 10th way to make money from property is called flipping property. So this is whereby you typically find the worst house on the best street. Now, the reason that you want to do that is because the street will tell you the average house price sales on that street. And let's use an example, £150,000. Let's say you found a house that was you could purchase for, say, less than £100,000. Let's say £80,000, or in fact, let's say, to make numbers simple, let's say £70,000. The reason that someone would sell it to you at £70,000 is because it obviously it's got a problem. Usually, the problem is it's got a lot of work that needs to be done to it. It needs modernization. So let's say, for example, you had an elderly person that lived in there for 50, 60, 70 years. They never refurbished it, never did anything. They passed away. The property then went through to a friend, a family member, or something like that. They've no desire to be a landlord or whatever. They just want the money from the property. So now the property's been, they're willing to sell it at £70,000 for a quick sale. Let's say it needs £30,000 worth of work doing to it. So new kitchen, new bathroom, electrics, central heating, all of that kind of stuff. Total refurbishment, structurally sound, but needs a total cosmetic refurbishment, as it were. So you put £30,000 into it. So now you bought it at 70, you spent 30 on it, you're in for £100,000. You know that the market, the average sale on the street will be about £150,000. So you then sell it to like a first-time buyer, something like that, and you'll then make £50,000 pre-tax profit. So that's a great way to make money from property. And the reason you'd flip it rather than keep it in your own portfolio is generally because once you refinance, as an example, at £150,000, the cash flow, the rent that you get from the property is not really significantly enough to cover all the expenses of owning the property. Let's say after all your expenses, all the rent that comes in, all your expenses that come out, let's say you're only able to get something like £50 or £20 or something like that after paying all your management fees and all that kind of stuff. It's not really worth keeping a hold of the property. However, it does make a really good flip because you bought it at a fantastic price and you could sell it on to someone else who's going to be a homeowner. And for them, they're not really interested in cash flow. They're looking at the location, the quality of their place. They can just walk into the property. It's a turnkey property. They can walk in and live in it tomorrow. Fantastic purchase for them. So that's a win for them. It's a win for you because you've managed to get the property at a fantastic price and make your money that way. In this example, £50,000. And it's a great win for the vendor, the person that's selling it, because they don't have the money to refurbish it anyway. They're looking for a quick sale. And if they try to sell it to a first-time buyer, there's not many people that want to then buy it at £70,000 and then find another £30,000 to fix it up, and all the time frame involved in that. They're looking for a turnkey property. So you can help a vendor or seller that way. So that is a flip property. Now, the next one is assisted sale, kind of similar to the flip. What you would do is you would find a property that is that needs to be sold. You'd have a vendor, sorry, that has a problem, is trying to sell a property. Let's say they've got this property, they cannot, they don't have the money to put into it to fix it up. What you do is you get it under contract with them, and you'd say that you've got it under contract for £70,000, and then what you say to them is anything over the £70,000 that I sell it for, I will then be able to keep as my commercial reward, as it were. So they agree to that. You put it in writing, get a contract in place that allows you to do that. You then go out and find an investor, and you sell it to your investor for £90,000, let's say. So the investor is happy because they get a below market value deal. They know that the property is going to be worth £150,000. They know they've got to put, let's say, £30,000 of work into it, but they also know on the back end that when they rent it out, the margin is going to be significantly enough for them. Let's say after all the expenses and paying a management and stuff like that, they're going to get £250 a month after everything. So they'll be really happy with that. So now the vendor's happy because they get it sold, and they wouldn't have had anyone else. Maybe it's been on the market for ages, they didn't get any buyers, and they're tired of it's costing them money every month to hold on to the property. So they're really happy that they sold it for the price that they need. You'll also get a 20 grand profit in there as well, because you're selling it to an investor at 90, and the investor's really happy because he knows that he bought it at 90, spends 30 on it, so he's in for 120, and it's worth 150,000. So he's got 30 grand worth of equity in there, and he knows he's going to get good cash flow from the property as well. So it's a win across the board. So that's an assisted sale, and that's a great property investment strategy to have in your toolkit or toolbox of property investment strategies. The next one, number 12, this one is typically the buy to let model. So I've just kind of touched on it in the last example, which is you find investment property, you purchase it, you with the view to holding on to it long term. So what happens is you get tenants in that pay you a certain amount of rent, and then you know that your expenses of keeping the property is this, and the bit in between is your cash flow, your profit, your cash flow. And so long as that's a decent cash flow, you can hold on to that property and keep it in your portfolio. So let's say, as an example, most buy-to-lets you'll probably find will give you a cash flow of anywhere like 100 to about £250 per calendar month. So that's after all your expenses of holding the property. So that could be things like paying your letting agent to manage it for you, paying your mortgage, paying your buildings insurance, and all that kind of stuff like that. Because it's a single buy-to-let. Typically you'd rent to a couple, or you'd rent to a young family or something along those lines. What happens is they move into that property, into the area because it's close to work, or because it's good catchment, good family area, good catchment area for schools and things like that. So they move into your property. And if it's for something like schools, if the child's going to primary school, you know they're going to be in their property for about 5 years whilst the kid goes through school. And so if you've got a good property, well done up, well presented, in a really good desirable area, good schools nearby, or right next to a really great employer, you'll get someone that moves in and will stay for like 5 years, 7 years before they'll then look to move on. You'll have good cash flow on the property, and you can sit on that and hold it for a while, and just over time watch the capital appreciation of the property rise and rise and rise. So buy to let's a really good property investment strategy, and a really great way to make money from property. So that, if you've enjoyed the content so far, please do give me a thumbs up, because it helps me to know to make more videos like this. My name's Azir Thatcher from Successful Property Investment Secrets, and on this particular channel, what we specialize in doing is making videos each week that we can then help you along your property investment journey. So the idea is providing you with really useful strategies, resources and tips that's used by some of the most successful property investors in the UK in order to help provide you with a shortcut your learning curve and helping you to achieve your property investment goals. So I hope you've enjoyed this video so far. If it's your first time to the channel, please do consider subscribing because it helps our community to grow. And make sure you also, as well as smashing the subscribe button, make sure you hit that notification bell because I'll be doing a lot more videos like this moving forward and helping you hopefully to cut the learning curve with regards to property investing in general. And we'll also be doing a lot of interviews as well moving forwards with other industry experts to help you, again, reveal the insider secrets that help successful property investors around the UK achieve their property investment goals. So by watching them and what they do, hopefully it helps you in what you are planning to do or currently doing in your property investment journey. So that's it for now. My name's Azir Factor, as I said. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please do give it a thumbs up if you had, and please do remember to share this video with anyone else that might find it interesting as well. And last of all, please do make sure that you hit the subscribe button because it helps the community to grow, and also that'll be fantastic. You'll be part of the SPIS family, as it were, Successful Property Investment Secrets family. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video.